Guys, hope everybody's doing great. We're going to start the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War today. Last week we spoke about the Cold War. Today we're going to get into the ending of it. The fall of the USSR. What we'll learn today, what were the causes and the effects of the collapse of the Soviet Union? How did the relationship between the US and the USSR change under Reagan and Gorbachev? And what were the effects of Glasnost and Perestroika? Now, the United States, we had fought one of the proxy wars in Korea, the Korean War, and then in Vietnam. The Soviets also had a proxy war, and it was the Soviet-Afghan War. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan to keep the communist government in power. This aggression ended the détente, or ceased aggression, and cooling off between the Cold War, with the U.S. cutting off grain sales to the Soviet Union and boycotting the 1980 Olympics in Moscow. To stop the spread of communism, the U.S. supplied the Afghan Mujahideen with weapons. They were the freedom fighters of Afghanistan. The rebels will eventually defeat the army in a bitter 10-year war that demoralized and weakened the Soviet economy. There's a picture of Osama bin Laden on there because he was a Mujahideen fighter. And the CIA went in and they gave guns and they gave training to all of these Mujahideen. And they built massive tunnel complexes and fortresses within the mountains of Afghanistan. After the war, the Afghan people had expected the United States to pretty much just come in and help out and help rebuild Afghanistan. But pretty much what we did after the war was said, hey, good job, you won against the Soviets, congratulations, and then we left. We didn't send them any money, we didn't help them rebuild, and that resulted in a lot of resentment from the Afghan people, and it allowed the Taliban and terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda to take hold. And that is why Osama bin Laden, he absolutely hated the United States after that. And it will lead to 9/11. So that's kind of the Afghan war. Now, the Reagan and Gorbachev, in the 1970s, the U.S. also suffered from a poor economy, long gas lines, and low morale. An embarrassing hostage crisis happens in Iran, where the American embassy will be overran by Iranian radicals and hold Americans hostage for over a year. President Jimmy Carter admitted the U.S. was stuck as the Soviet Union pulled ahead in the nuclear missile technology because we started to scale back after SALT, or the Strategic Arms Limitation talks with Nixon in the Soviet Union in the 1970s, and the Russians kept on doing it. In 1980, Ronald Reagan will become our president, and he renewed American patriotism. Reagan was firm with the Soviet Union and called it an evil empire, as well as the focus of an evil in the modern world. And his main goal was to stop the Soviets. Excuse me. Believing peace could only be achieved through strength, Reagan increased military spending and created this new thing called Star Wars, which further crippled the weak Soviet economy because it could not keep up. Star Wars was a program where we supposedly had all of these satellites in outer space that could shoot down a Soviet warhead if it was fired at us. We had the program started, but Reagan made it sound like it was much more effective than what it really was, and it made the Russians really buy in and believe that we had this, and they spent a ton of money to try to keep up. Their economy was very weak anyways, and it pretty much breaks them. So we kind of played a bluff, and it worked, and it eventually cripples the Soviet Union. Reagan also fought communism in Latin America. Communism started to spread into Central America, especially in Nicaragua. When the communist Sandistas overthrew the Nicaraguan government in 1979, Reagan secretly supplied counter-revolutionaries, or the Contras, with weapons. The Civil War weakened Nicaragua, but by 1990, the Sandistas handed over to a freely elected government, ending communism in Nicaragua. The fall of the Soviet Union. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became the Soviet leader and faced huge problems. There was civil unrest over the Afghan war, and a weak Soviet economy could not match Reagan's defense spending. Also for consumer goods. So people are pretty much starving in the Soviet Union because they couldn't afford to buy food and things like that because they were spending all of the money on the military. And in a communist government, the government is what provides the food and things like that to the people, and they weren't able to do that, so people become very, very upset about it, and the Soviet Union starts to fall from within. To ease Cold War tensions, Gorbachev removes the Soviet Union from Afghanistan and signed treaties with President Reagan that reversed the arms race. Gorbachev also introduces two sweeping reforms aimed at improving Soviet government and economy. However, both reforms have unintended consequences that would lead to the collapse of the Soviet Union. The first one is called Glasnost, or a policy calling for openness that ended censorship and encouraged people to discuss the problems in the Soviet Union. Before this, if you said anything bad about the communist government, you were pretty much thrown in jail. So they were allowed to discuss the problems within the government. Political dissidents were freed, and the media began reporting the negative aspects of the Soviet Union, such as the gulags, which were the very, very cruel prisons within the Soviet Union, poverty and corruption in the government. And then the 1986 Chernobyl, which was a nuclear reactor in the Ukraine, which was part of the Soviet Union back then, will have a meltdown, and it causes widespread effects of radiation throughout the area. It weakens Soviet power and causes many to lose faith in in communism and the Soviet Union. And I think we're going to stop there today. We will pick up with Perestroika tomorrow and finish it. I hope everybody's doing great. We will talk at you tomorrow. Bye.